Hey, welcome back to the Amplified Podcast. You are joining us for an evening installment of our podcast this week. Time just got away from me. Got busy doing stuff. And so we're recording this one at about 6 o'clock in the evening. And so that's why it maybe looks different. But either way, we have plenty of time to go through the Word, and that's what matters. And so if you've been with us the last few episodes, I highly recommend going back and watching the last few episodes. It's not like you need it or you're going to be lost in the plot, but we are following plot, so it makes sense to go back and see the first few episodes. But we've seen how God has created the world, and then God has undone the world with Noah's flood and redeemed humanity in that way. And then we saw him begin to zero in on one family. This is Abraham's family, and all the while we're watching how basically we want to go from, let me write it on my screen here. We want to go from Adam all the way down in the New Testament to Jesus. We're following one family line that's going to take us from here to here. And so along the way, we're going to see, we saw Noah here. We're looking at Abraham now. Today, we're going to focus on Isaac, his son, and how he got married. But then you also have King David farther along. And you have all these wicked and good and bad kings that flow all the way down to Jesus. And so we've zeroed in on this family line, and that's what we're going to be following pretty much for the rest of the Bible. But it's a good time. And so tonight we are going to be looking at a bride for Isaac, as well as Abraham's death. What happens with Abraham finally passing away. And so in the last episode, we looked at the death and burial of Sarah, and we saw how God had tested Abraham to see if he was really willing to give up that thing that was most important to him, which is the life of his promised son, Isaac. And so we see him go up the mountain and prepare and do everything to sacrifice his son. And at the last moment, God stays his hand and says, "Now I know that you won't withhold even the most important thing from me, and I will make you the father of many nations, and also all the descendants of the earth will be blessed through you." And so instead of death in this case, we see overwhelming life. And tonight we're going to see how that family line continues. We're going to look at some of the genealogy. We're going to see how some of the customs would have worked back then for getting married. And we're just going to go through chapter 24 and chapter 25. So if this is your first time with us, welcome to the Amplified Podcast. This is a podcast for anyone who is maybe wanting to understand the Bible a little bit better. Maybe you've been in church for a very long time and you're kind of lost in the details of it all. This is to help you kind of find your way from point A to point B all throughout the Bible. And so you may also be someone who's just given their life to Jesus for the very first time, and you're trying to kind of wrap your head around this enormous book called the Bible, and that's also what I'm here for. And so tonight we're going to continue following this family line, as always. And so if you have your Bible, go ahead and open it up to Genesis 24, and we'll begin. Of course, we're reading from the Amplified version. This is the Amplified Podcast. And so it says this in chapter 24. Now Abraham was old, well advanced in age, and the Lord had blessed Abraham in all things. Faithfulness, as we talked about last week, faithfulness to God translates to blessings from God. It's not like all going to be blessings. I mean, we still face trials in life, but we see how faith leads to blessings. And so Abraham's been blessed in all things. Abraham said to his servant Eliezer, this is the one who was going to inherit everything had Isaac not been born. Eliezer literally means God is my help. And so he's become Abraham's helper. The oldest of his household, who had charge over all that Abraham owned, he said, "Please put your hand under my thigh, as it is customary for affirming a solemn oath." Now, I saw a long time ago, I'll be honest with you, I saw a very confusing sermon about what this means. But essentially, like in kind of like apocalyptic movies where they always shake hands like this and they like grab on really tight. This is kind of like a way of like grabbing onto someone, but also it's like, I don't know, you're grabbing someone in a very vulnerable area in their thigh. And it's kind of like, I don't know, you're kind of bringing them into the family a little bit. And so it's basically like, I don't know, think about it as like the most solemn way you can make a contract, the most solemn way that you can create an oath between two people who aren't married. And so he grabs onto his thighs like a form of respect, but also a form of like vulnerability, like, I need you to do this thing. And we're going to find out what he's going to ask him. He says this, and I will make you swear by the Lord, the God of the heaven and the God of the earth, that you will not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites among whom I live. And so if you've been watching along in our story, we have Abraham. He is the top dog. Okay. He's very old at this point, as we know. And he married, put her over here. He married Sarah. I didn't write that very well. He married Sarah. They had a child named Isaac. Isaac has 2 A's. He also had another son through Hagar, his servant, when they were operating in unfaithfulness, and his name was Ishmael. And that's who, you can't really see it with the lights over there, but it's Ishmael. That's who the Muslims and the Islamic faith traces back their heritage to. They trace it back to Ishmael in the same way the Jews and the Christians trace our heritage back to Isaac. And so we have these two boys. Ishmael is kind of out of the picture at this point. So we're focusing in on Isaac, and Abraham up here is speaking to his servant, Eliezer, who's been with him for a long time. Did I spell that right? Eliezer. Yep. Has been with him for a long time. Think of him as like the Alfred to his Batman. Okay. They've been together for a long time. And for a long time, Abraham thought everything that he owned was going to go to Eliezer. Wow, you can't even see it on the screen up there. Thought it was going to go to Eliezer because he didn't have a son at the time. And so God, of course, gives him a son and says that a servant in your household will not take all that you own when you die, as was customary. And so he still is bringing him in. He's like, Alfred, I need you to do this thing. Make sure that when my wife finds a son, when you find a son from my wife, that she is not one of the pagan Canaanites that worships all these other gods, that does all these other blood sacrifices, that is involved in all kinds of worship apart from our God. You have to take her from, you have to find a woman for him from our culture, our family, from the Abrahamic line, somewhere from my father Terah's household, because we worship the Lord, and that's what's important. You will not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites among whom I live. So he's living in Canaan at this time, and he wants to make sure that his son isn't going to marry the wrong person. It says, but you will instead go to my former country, Mesopotamia. And so we saw that he moves from, let's pull it up for a second. He moves from, is this the right one? Yeah. Let's check this one. Okay. This one works pretty well. Sort of. So he starts, if you can see it, he starts way over here. Let me erase this real quick. He starts his journey way over here in Mesopotamia, and he ends up down here in modern day Israel. And so he's telling Eliezer to go back to where they started, where his family is now, and find a daughter-in-law for him there. So that's what Eliezer's going to do. He's a good servant. Mesopotamia, and to my relatives, and take a wife for my son Isaac, the heir of the covenant promise. So Abraham's taking this covenant promise through his family very seriously. And so the servant said to him, suppose that the woman I find is not willing to follow me back to this country. Should I take your son to the country from which you came? So like, what if she doesn't want to leave her dad's house? Should I come back, get Isaac, and then take him to her? And he says this, Abraham said to him, see to it that you do not take my son back there. God told us to come here. This is where we're going to stay. This is our land. This is This is what God is going to give us. She's got to come here. Okay. The Lord, the God of heaven, whom took me from my father's house, from the land of my family and my birth, who spoke to me and swore to me, saying, to your descendants I will give this land. This is the modern day Israel. I will give to this land. He will send his angel before you to guide you, and you will take a wife from there for my son and bring her here. So go back home to where I used to live, bring her here. If the woman is not willing to follow you to this land, then you will be free from this my oath and blameless only. You must never take my son back there. So if you find the right girl, but she's unwilling, you're good to go. Don't worry about it. The Lord will take care of it. But you do not take my son back there, okay? Because he doesn't want his son to be taken to the wrong place. Just like he doesn't want, he's probably thinking back to when Abraham and his nephew, Lot, we'll put him down here. Lot went off to Sodom and Gomorrah, and it ruined his entire life. His entire life was ruined because he was living in the area that he should not have been living in. And so I'm sure Abraham has that on his mind. He does not want that to happen. Where you live really matters, and especially when God has told you to live somewhere. If you're not living there, you could be in a dangerous place. God has his absolute best in mind for you. It's not to say that judgment and all this stuff's going to come down, but if God told you to do something, then follow through with it. Just do it. So it says this. So the servant, verse 9, put his hand under the thigh of Abraham his master and swore to him concerning this matter. Then the servant took 10 of his master's camels and set out, taking with him some of his master's good things with him. So he got up and journeyed to Mesopotamia, between the Tigris and Euphrates River, to the city of Nahor, the home of Abraham's brother. So let's just look at our family tree here. Up at the top here, we have Terah, and then he has 3 sons. We have Abraham, Nahor, and Haran. Abraham, so we're focusing on, obviously, we're trying to find a wife for Isaac. So Eliezer, who's not listed here, is going to the town where Nahor lives. And it says this, he made the camels kneel down outside the city by the well at the time of the evening when the women go out to draw water. He said, O Lord, God of my master Abraham, please grant me success today and show loving kindness, faithfulness, like we talked about last week. Show the chesed, show your loving kindness to my master Abraham. Behold, I stand here at the spring of water, and the daughters of the men of the city are coming out to draw water. Now, let it be that the girl to whom I say, please let down your jar so that I may have a drink. And she replies, drink, and I will also give your camels water to drink. May she be the one from whom you have selected as wife for your servant Isaac. Show loving kindness for your servant Isaac, and by this I will know that you have shown loving kindness, faithfulness to my master. So he's putting all of his faith in the Lord, obviously, as we would hope, but this is a perfect example of the word we talked about last week, chesed. It means that any kind of grace or loving kindness or any kind of help that goes above and beyond what is expected. So it's expected that if a man walks up to a woman and says, will you grab me something to drink, that she would immediately say, yes, of course I'll get you something to drink. But it's not expected automatically that she would have to give water to all 10 of his camels. All 10 of his camels. And so she's going above and beyond in loving kindness. She is showing chesed, and he's asking God to show the same level of loving kindness that a woman. So this is what he's hoping for. And so he's waiting on the Lord. And so it says this, before Eliezer had even finished speaking, Rebekah came out with her water jar on her shoulder. Rebekah was the daughter of Bethuel, the son of Milcah, who was the wife of Abraham's brother Nahor. So this is what I'm here to help you guys with. So we have, let's read it again. Rebekah, she's down here. Rebekah was the daughter of Bethuel. Okay, this is Abraham's nephew. The son of Milcah and Nahor. Yeah. So we have Abraham's brother marries Milcah. They have Bethuel. They have Rebekah. So this is Abraham's grand niece. Okay. Now the Bible doesn't tell us anything about whether being this close in family relations was good or not. We just know that this was the person that God chose for him. And like we talked about with Adam and Eve, it's possible that even at this time that with obviously it was horrible what happened to Lot and his daughters, but we're starting to see a separation out in the family that's far enough away. We could say biologically that it's not, I don't know if it's great, but it's not necessarily frowned upon in this case, because this is the person God chooses for him because he wants to keep the faithfulness in the family. Of course, we're following this family line all the way down to Jesus, so it's important to find someone faithful, just like it is today. When you get married, if you're a Christian, especially if you're a Christian, that you should find someone who's also faithful to Jesus, who also loves the Lord. Verse 16. The girl was very beautiful, a virgin, unmarried, and she went down to the spring and filled her jar and came up. Then the servant, Eliezer, ran up to meet her and said, "Please let me drink a little water from your jar." And she said, "Drink, my lord." She quickly lowered her jar to her hand and gave him a drink. When she had given Eliezer a drink, she said, showing chesed, I'm adding that in, "I will also draw water for your camels until they have finished drinking." So this is kind of the character of Jesus that we see in this young lady, that she's willing to go above and beyond. Of course, Jesus, I just messed that up. Jesus said, when someone asks you to go 1 mile, go 2. And so she's going, we can almost say 10 extra miles in this case. She's showing chesed. So she quickly emptied her jar into the trough and ran again to the well and drew water for all his camels. Meanwhile, the man stood gazing at Rebekah in reverent silence. He's like, I cannot believe that the Lord answered me this fast, waiting to know if the Lord had made his trip successful or not. When the camels had finished drinking, Eliezer took a gold ring weighing 1/2 shekel and 2 bracelets for her hands weighing 10 shekels in gold, and said, "Whose daughter are you? Please tell me. Is there room in your father's house for us to lodge?" So I'm guessing that, Hilton and Marriott wasn't as big of a thing back then. So you kind of had to find somebody to stay with when you went to a new place. And she said to him, "I am the daughter of Bethuel, Milcah's son, to whom she bore to her husband Nahor." So we watch that. That's the family line going all the way up. Again, she said to him, "We have plenty of both straw and feed and also room to lodge." This is incredible hospitality on their part. The man bowed his head and worshiped the Lord. Obviously, God has answered his question immediately. God has brought to him the wife for Isaac. And so when God answers our prayer, what is the thing that we should be doing? We should be automatically moving toward worship. He said, "Blessed be the Lord, the God of my master Abraham, who has not denied his loving kindness, his chesed, and his truth to my master. As for me, the Lord led me to the house of my master's brothers." Then the girl ran and told her mother's household what had happened. Now, Rebekah had a brother whose name was Laban, and we're going to find out a lot more about Laban in the future. He's an interesting character. Laban ran out to meet the man at the well. When he saw the ring and bracelets on his sister's arms, and when he heard Rebekah, his sister, saying, "The man said this to me," he went to Eliezer and found him standing by the camels at the spring. So she runs home. He stays there. Laban, her brother, runs out to meet him. Laban said, "Come in, you blessed of the Lord. Why do you stand outside, since I have made the house ready and I prepared a place for the camels?" So already Eliezer knows the customs. He has been incredibly kind, and now he's giving honorary gifts to her. Laban obviously recognizes that this is a good and honorable man, and he's like, "What are you doing still standing out here? Come on inside. I have everything ready for you." And Laban said, "Come inside, blessed of the Lord." Verse 32. So the man came into the house, and Laban unloaded his camels and gave them straw and feed. And he gave water to Eliezer to wash his feet and the feet of the men who were with him. But when the food was set before him, he said, "I will not eat until I've stated my business." Eliezer's like, "Look, I'm here for a purpose. Let me get this off my chest so that we can move forward, because otherwise, if this isn't going to work out, I don't want to take advantage of your hospitality. We're just going to go." So he said, this is kind of the way Hebrew texts work, and this is kind of one of the ways that we know that this is, I don't know, that this wasn't written just as a book. This isn't made up, because this is, if you were going to write a book for entertainment, you would never write it in this way. Literally what we're seeing is all the events happen, and now in the next few verses, we're going to read the story of him telling us exactly what happened in these verses. And so that's not really how we write narrative. It's how we might write history. If I told you to write down everything that happened today in explicit order, then this is how you might write it. And so it kind of gives way to the validity of Scripture. He said, I'm going to read this whole section. So he said, I'm Abraham's servant. Obviously, they would know who Abraham is. The Lord has greatly blessed my master, and he's become great, wealthy, and powerful, and has given flocks and herds and silver and gold and servants and maids and camels and donkeys to Abraham from the Lord. Now Sarah, my master's wife, bore a son to my master when she was in her old age, and he has given everything that he has to him. My master made me swear an oath, saying, you must not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites in whose land I live, but you shall instead go to my father's house and to my family and take a wife for my son Isaac. Then I said to my master, but suppose this woman doesn't want to follow me back to this land. He said to me, the Lord before whom I walk habitually and obediently, constantly and in good faith, will send his angel with you to make your journey successful, and you will take a wife for my son from the relatives and from my father's house. Then you will be free of this oath when you come to my relatives, and if they do not give her to you, you will also be free of the oath. So if you are obedient to what I'm saying now, and even if it works out or not, you're good to go. Just do as I say. I came today to the spring, O Lord, and said, O Lord, God of my master Abraham, now if you will make my journey on which I go successful, please look. I'm standing by the spring of water. Now let it be that when the maiden whom you have chosen for Isaac comes out to draw water, and to whom I say, please give me a little water to drink from your jar, and if she says to me, you drink and I will draw out water for your camels, she goes above and beyond, let that woman be the one to whom the Lord has selected and chosen as a wife for my master's son. Before I had finished praying with her, behold, Rebekah came out with her water jar on her shoulder, and she went down to the spring and drew water. And I said to her, please let me have a drink. She quickly let down her jar from her shoulder and said, drink, and I will also water your camel. So literally we're seeing this section happen 4 times. Eliezer prays it, then we read it happen. Now we're reading him pray it again, or he's not praying it again, but he's describing the prayer again, and then we're watching it happen again. This is never how you would write narrative, and it just gives way to this isn't just a story that was passed down. This is history, because this is how you would write history. She quickly let down her jar from her shoulder, verse 46, and said, drink, and I will also water your camels. And so I drank, and she also watered the camels. Then I asked her, whose daughter are you? She said, the daughter of Bethuel, Nahor's son, from whom Milcah bore to him. And I put the ring in her nose, and the bracelets on her arms. And I bowed down my head and worshiped the Lord and blessed the Lord, the God of my master Abraham, who had led me in the right way to take the daughter of my master's brother to his son as a wife. So thank you, Lord, for the success of this journey that has helped me find the woman for my master's son, Abraham's son, Isaac. So now, if you're going to show kindness and truth to my master, being faithful to him, tell me. And if not, tell me, so that I may go right to the left, go on my way. So tell me now, so that I don't have to stick around this whole night and take advantage of your hospitality. Tell me now if this is going to work out. Then Laban and Bethuel answered, the matter has come before the Lord, so we dare not speak good or about it to you. We cannot interfere. So they have enough wisdom to go, look, it sounds like God's in this, so I'm not going to tell you yes or tell you no. We're going to leave it up to Rebekah and the Lord. He said, Rebekah is before you. Take her and go. Let her be the wife of your master's son, as the Lord spoken. When Abraham's servant heard their words, he bowed himself to the ground and worshiped before the Lord. Then the servant brought out jewelry of silver, jewelry of gold, articles of clothing, and gave them to Rebekah. He also gave her precious things to her brother and her mother. So he's immediately showing honor to Abraham's relatives. Then he said to the men who were with him, then he and the men who were with him ate and drank and spent the night there. in the morning, when they got up, he said, now send me back to my master. Okay. He's showing honor to the man of the household, saying, listen, we got to get out of here. Please let me go. Give me your blessing. But Rebekah's brother and mother said, let the girl stay with us a few days, at least 10, then she may go. So they're kind of like, listen, we obviously know God's in this, but she's still our daughter. Can you just let her hang out? This is kind of sudden for us. Can she stay for 10 days? But Eliezer said to them, do not delay me, since the Lord has prospered my way. Send me away so that I may go back to my master. It's kind of like saying, don't let me delay in my obedience. I'm on a mission from the Lord here, from my master. Please don't make me wait 10 extra days. They said, we will call the girl and ask her what she prefers. So they called Rebekah and said, will you go with this man? She answered, I will go. She can see this is from the Lord, but she's also probably ready to go. So they send off their sister Rebekah and her nurse Deborah as her attendants, and Abraham's servant Eliezer and his men. They blessed Rebekah and said to her, this is very important, may you, our sister, become the mother of thousands of 10,000s. May your descendants possess and conquer the city gates of those who hate them. And that's exactly what she does. She becomes she becomes the mother of Jacob and Esau, who Jacob becomes the father of the 12 tribes of Israel. And the rest is history. I mean, she literally is the mother of these tens of thousands, probably millions and billions at this point. Then Rebekah and her attendants stood. They mounted camels and followed the man. So the servant took Rebekah on his way. Now, I think it's just, I've just been thinking about this, so you may hear me think out loud about this a bit here, but we have, let's look at this. We have Eliezer. You can't even see that at all. Let me switch the colors real quick. Let me switch the colors. So we have Eliezer is sent to a well. So we'll say this is all happening at a well. Is sent to a well for a specific purpose of finding one woman. This woman becomes Rebekah. Now, if we look up what the name Rebekah means to bind or captivating. So obviously we know she was a beautiful woman. I'm not really sure what to bind means. I think it just means to bind. But she's obviously captivating. And I just think it's interesting that Jesus, in nearly the same area, couple thousand years later, Jesus goes to a well to meet one woman. And we don't even know her name. She's just the woman at the well. And so, I don't know. I just think it's interesting that God's, in both cases, bringing this kind of this metaphor of water in both cases, where everyone needs water. Everyone needs water to survive. And we're seeing that the character of Rebekah is just like the character of Jesus. She's willing to go above and beyond what she's been asked to do. Jesus is that water that is above and beyond what we have need of. And so both times the fulfillment of what God needs happens at a well. And so you could probably explore that for a long time, but it's just interesting that both cases happen with woman found at a well. You kind of think about the well as kind of like think about it like the first century and previous century Facebook. This is where all of the news was shared. This is where all the women and the children gathered every morning to share what happened the day before. This is kind of like one of the social centers of the city. And each time God is sending someone there for the express purpose of meeting one woman. And I don't know. I think it's also interesting. I was talking to a friend of mine about this, that, there are a lot of people in the Bible that we see that they may live, 50, 70, 150 years throughout their lives. But in the Bible, we see them maybe do just one really important thing. They do one really important thing. And I think in Eliezer's case, he's been around a long time with Abraham. He's probably advanced in years himself. I think his whole life was leading up to this one moment where God was going to use him as a piece in the puzzle to bring Rebekah to Isaac. And of course, we know Isaac's father of Jacob, father of the 12 tribes, father of Jesus, all the way down. But it seems that there are a lot of people in the Bible that God just asked them to do one specific thing. There are a lot of individuals that we know far more about their lives. There are a lot of people that played extremely key roles, and their whole life kind of led up to one moment. There are a couple judges that we read that it says so-and-so judged Israel for 10 years, and they did a good job. That's all we know. There's a couple prophets that show up in the books of Kings, and they show up to tell whichever king it is one thing, and then we never hear from them again. And it's kind of like their whole life led up to one moment. And so that kind of takes the pressure off of us as Christians a lot, where it kind of feels like, while yes, we need to be fulfilling God's purpose for our lives every day, we need to be living in the fruit of the Spirit, but I think for a lot of us, if not most of us, God has one really important thing that he needs us to do in our lives. And sometimes it's as simple as find a wife for my servant. Sometimes it's as simple as deliver this one prophetic word to this king, and you have served your purpose, and you've been a faithful servant in that case. And I think we get so caught up in like the times where we feel like we failed the Lord, and we feel like we've messed up. But I think God sees the little things, but he also sees the grand picture and the grand scheme of your life that he's laid out before you, where kind of like John Bevere said, there's this video that he has where God is calling all these people by their name and by what he called them to do. And this woman comes up and he basically calls her like Angela, like Mother Angela, and she says, I don't feel like I've done anything special for the Lord in my life. I didn't save 1 million people. I didn't do a bunch of amazing things. And God says, no, but you were obedient, because I called you to be a mother to the 2 sons that you mothered, and you were an incredible parent. And those 2 sons went on to see the salvations of 1.2 million people. But that couldn't have happened if you had not been obedient in this small area of your life. And I don't know. I think it just takes a lot of the pressure off when you think about it like that. And so I think Eliezer did a great job in this case. All right, let's wrap up chapter 24. Now Isaac had returned from going to Bir La Roy, well of the living, for the one who sees me. For he was living in the Negev. Isaac went out to bow down in prayer in the field early in the evening. He raised his eyes and looked up and saw camels coming. So Isaac is going out to pray before the Lord. He's saying his evening prayers, and off in the distance, behold, he sees the caravan coming back. Rebekah also raised her eyes and looked, and when she saw Isaac, she dismounted from her camel. She said to the servant, who's that man out there walking across the field to meet us? And the servant said, he is my master Isaac. So she took a veil and covered herself, as was customary. The servant told Isaac everything that he had done. So now we're seeing the conversation between Eliezer and Isaac. I'm sure he's probably telling you the same story you've now heard 4 times over the course of this chapter. The servant told Isaac everything he'd done. Then Isaac brought her into his mother's tent, and he took Rebekah in marriage. So pretty much an arranged marriage just happens immediately. And she became his wife, and he loved her. Therefore, Isaac was comforted after his mother's death. So remember, we've just seen Rebekah pass away. It doesn't really tell us how long after she passes away, but it does tell us it's, this moment where they get married does bring comfort to Isaac. This also kind of brings into light that we kind of make modern marriage all about emotions and, Am I in love with this person now? Do I love this person now? And we kind of use that as the barometer. Instead of finding out, is this the person that God has for me? In this case, this is 100% the person that God has for Isaac. And the day he meets her is the day he marries her. So C.S. Lewis talks about this a lot, and I can't remember all the details, but he kind of basically says that, every day you make the choice to love this person, to want what's best for them more than you want what's best for yourself. And Isaac kind of models this for us as he loves Rebekah. And in this moment, this is his wife, and he chooses to love her. I mean, it's a choice from both people. I'm going to love this person. Even though I didn't have this long dating scheme for a long time leading up to today, this is the person God has for me. And I'm not saying that we should go back to the system, although my parents certainly offered many times. But you'd be surprised how many arranged marriages end up working out when both people just agree to love the other person, that love is a choice in that way. And so that's how they come together. Now we're getting to see, we've slowed down a little bit, but we're seeing more of how Adam and his descendants are going to make it all the way down to Jesus in this case. And so now we've had Noah up here. A while later, we saw Abraham, and now we're seeing Isaac. These two boys and Isaac's son are going to become extremely pivotal characters throughout the rest of the Bible. A lot of times you're going to see people say, from the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, I am their God. I'm the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And so God certainly identifies with these three boys. And let's see how it goes on. Abraham took another wife whose name was Keturah. She gave birth to Zimran, Jokshan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shua. Really, the main name you would need to know from that list is Midian, because later on they become the Midianites. And can't remember if they're really enemies or not, but, they show up a lot, so it's important to know where they come from. Jokshan was the father of Sheba and Dedan. The sons of Dedan were Ashurim, Letushim, Leomim. The sons of Midian were Ephath, Epher, Hanach, Abida, and Eldah. All these were the sons of Keturah. Now Abraham gave everything that he had to Isaac. Isaac is the child of promise, even though he's now having more children with this other woman. And let's do the math and see, just for fun, let's see how long after she died Abraham waited. You don't know it, but I just paused it for a long time, and I actually cannot find out how old Abraham was when he married Keturah. I do know that he was 137, so we'll write that down. He was 137 when Sarah passed away. And so we're going to see how old Abraham is when he passes away just here in a second. So I don't know if he waited all that long. We seem to think that Keturah was one of Abraham's concubines. So in that time, again, the Bible does not tell us whether or not this is a good thing or not. We just know that they did. There's usually the main wife. Sometimes there were other wives that these men were married to, and then there were usually women that were there just to have sex with the main guy. And so these dudes were something else. Again, this is not God endorsing this type of behavior. This is just what happened. And so probably his concubine. So nobody's perfect, I guess. Now Abraham gave everything that he had to his son Isaac, but to the sons of his concubines, there you go, Hagar and Keturah, Abraham gave gifts while he was still living and sent them to the east country away from Isaac, his son of promise. The days of Abraham's life were 175 years. So, let's erase this real quick. our boy, Abraham, has now passed away at the ripe old age of 175 years old. That's a long time. It's not as long as Adam, who I think was 950. He's basically like a 17-year-old kid compared to a 95-year-old man. But 175 years is still a long time. Then Abraham breathed his last, and he died at a good old age. An old man who was satisfied with life, and he was gathered to his peoples who preceded him in death. Never mind, I was going to make a joke. It's not appropriate. So his sons Isaac and Ishmael buried him in the cave at Machpelah in the field of Ephron, the son of Zohar, the Hittite, which is in Mamre. And if I remember correctly, that would have been the same cave where where Sarah is buried. So now they're laid to rest together. We also see that Isaac and Ishmael are both here in this case. Ishmael had been sent away a long time ago as a child, and Hagar took him back to Egypt where she was from. But it seems that both boys came together for the death of their father. Literally, I should have just read the next verse. The field which Abraham purchased from the sons of Heth, there Abraham was buried with Sarah, his wife. Yeah, that's what I just said. Now, after the death of Abraham, God blessed his son Isaac. I feel like it's turned into a longer episode. Isaac lived at Beer Lahai Roy. Either way, it means the God who sees, and I think I have it here. I don't know. We'll find it. God who sees. Yep. Well of the living one who sees. So God is watching over them. Now, this is the descendants of Ishmael. Ishmael's kind of been silent for a little while. Last time we saw him, he was a little boy. But these are kind of like, I wrote my Bible, these are kind of like the anti-tribes. So Abraham, his son is Isaac, and Ishmael, of course. But Isaac's main son is Jacob. Jacob, his sons become the 12 tribes of Israel, who we are so familiar with. Now, Ishmael, so we'll put Ish over here. Ishmael has sons of his own, and they become the people who we're about to talk about right now. They become like the anti-tribes. Many of them are at war with Isaac's descendants. We don't really know if Isaac and Ishmael were friends. We just know that they're both there at the funeral. Lots of people come together for funerals, so who knows? Now, these are the records of the descendants of Ishmael, Abraham's son, whom Hagar the Egyptian, Sarah's maid, bore to Abraham. That's what we know. These are the names of the 12 sons. Like I said, kind of like the 12 anti-tribes. 12 anti-tribes of Ishmael, named in their order of their births. We're going to give it a shot here. Nebaioth, the firstborn of Ishmael, and Kedar, Adbeel, Mibsam, Mishma, Dumah, Massa, Hadad, Tema, Jetur, Naphish, and Kedema. These are the sons of Ishmael. These are the names by their settlements and by their encampments. Sheepfolds of 12 princes according to their tribes. So these boys grow up to become great on their own. They become kind of the Arabs today. They become sheiks. They become, they become big dudes in their own right. And so I want to read to you what their names mean real quick. So Ishmael's 12 princes. Ishmael means God hears. Nebaioth means heights or fruitfulness. Kedar means dark or swarthy. Adbeel means disciplined by God. Mibsam means fragrance or sweet odor. Mishma means hearing. Dumah means silence. Massa means burden or oracle. Hadad means mighty. Tema means south country or desert. Jetur means enclosure or defense. Naphish means refreshment or breathing. Kedema means eastern or ancient. So, they're not necessarily bad names. They're They're not necessarily, in all cases, good names either. It's not like Ishmael, which means God hears, or they're not just outright godly names, but they're not outright evil names either. Silence, hearing, which is kind of ironic. They're born right after each other. Mighty, South Country, Enclosure. Sometimes they would name them just after what was happening at their birth or what was going on in their lives. The fact that hearing is right after silence may mean that at the time he was hearing from the Lord, and then after Dumas was born, maybe he didn't hear God's voice anymore, or maybe he went deaf. I don't know, but we're not seeing really great names yet. We see discipline by God and sweet odor, but it's not like we see horrible names yet. It's like wickedness or consuming, or I don't know. We just don't see a lot of evil names yet. And so there are 12 anti-tribes. Ishmael lived 137 years, and then he breathed his last and died, and was gathered to his people who had preceded him in death. Ishmael's sons' descendants settled from Havilah to Shur, which is in the east of Egypt as one goes toward Assyria. He settled opposite east of all his relatives. Now, here are Isaac's sons. These are the records of the descendants of Isaac, Abraham's son. Abraham was the father of Isaac. Isaac was 40 years old when he married Rebekah, the daughter of Bethuel, the Aramean Syrian of Padan Aram, the sister of Laban, Aramean. So this is, like I said, this is them writing history. She's the daughter of this person, who's the son of this person. They're making sure you know who's being talked about. Isaac prayed to the Lord for his wife because she was unable to conceive children. The Lord granted his prayer, and Rebekah, his wife, conceived twins. Now, these twins are going to be very important over the next few chapters. But his children struggled together within her, kicking and shoving one another. And she said, "If it is so that the Lord has heard our prayer, why then am I this way?" So she went to inquire of the Lord, praying for an answer. So she's having a rough time of pregnancy because these boys within her womb are fighting back and forth. And the Lord said to her, "The founders of two nations are in your womb. The separation of two nations has begun in your body. The one shall be stronger than the other, and the older shall serve the younger." The older shall serve the younger. When her days to be delivered were fulfilled, behold, there were twins in her womb. The first came out reddish all over like a hairy garment, and they named him Esau, which means hairy. Sometimes they just named him based off of what they saw in that moment when they were born. Sometimes it was based off of how painful the birth was. Sometimes it's what the weather was that day. And so these names mean all kinds of stuff. Abraham, his main son is Isaac. Isaac, his sons are, so far, Esau, who is number one. And now we're going to see. Afterward, his brother came out, and his hand grasped Esau's heel, so that he was named Jacob, the one who grabs by the heel, supplanter. Jacob is number two. Isaac was 60 years old when Rebekah gave birth to them, so they took them 20 years to have children. 20 years. We don't really know how old Rebekah was, but they've been married a long time. Now, Isaac loved and favored Esau because he enjoyed eating his game, but Rebekah... Oh, sorry, I missed a verse. Verse 27. When the boys grew up, Esau was able and a skilled hunter, a man of the outdoors, but Jacob was quiet and peaceful man living in tents. So Esau likes to be outside, Jacob likes to be indoors. That's what we know. Now, Isaac loved and favored Esau because he enjoyed eating his game, but Rebekah loved and favored Jacob. So Jacob kind of becomes a mama's boy at this point. Jacob had cooked a reddish-brown lentil stew one day when Esau came from the field and was famished. And Esau said to Jacob, "Please let me have a quick swallow of that red stuff there because I'm exhausted and famished. For that reason, Esau was also called Edom, red. So, they had nicknames back then too. Jacob answered, "First, sell me your birthright, the rights of a firstborn." This is a big deal, a really big deal, because in ancient days, it wasn't just like when somebody died, everything was distributed evenly. Basically, the firstborn would get 2/3 of everything that the father owned, and the rest of the siblings would split up 1/3. So that he's asking him a big thing, and he's kind of he's really got him cornered here. Jacob answered, "Sell me your birthright." Esau said, "Look, I'm about to die if I do not eat soon. So what use is the birthright to me?" He's like, "If I don't get some of that stew right now, I'm gonna die. Okay, so give me some of the stew." Okay, feels a little bit like a movie. Jacob said, "Swear an oath to me today that you are selling it to me for this food." So he swore an oath and sold him his birthright. Then Jacob gave Esau bread and lentil stew, and he ate and drank and got up and went on his way. In this way, Esau scorned his birthright. This is a big deal. So now it's essentially like we're erasing this, and now Esau, for all intents and purposes, is the secondborn. Jacob is the firstborn. And so he's kind of devious in this way. Jacob is. He's kind of, he's thinking outside the box in this case. It wasn't fair for Jacob to corner him like that, but certainly wasn't good judgment on Esau's part to agree to it. And in the Amplified Bible, it takes us to a reference in Hebrews 12:15, when the writer of Hebrews is saying this in 12:15. "See to it that no one falls short of God's grace, that no root of resentment springs up and causes trouble, and by it many be defiled. And see to it that no immoral or godless, like Esau, who sold his birthright for a single meal. For you know that later on, when he wanted to regain title to his inheritance of the blessing." So now the writer's telling us that Esau wanted to get back into the number one spot, get his birthright back. He was rejected, for he found no opportunity for repentance. There was no way to repair what he had done, no chance to recall the choice he had made, even though he sought for it with bitter tears. So, I don't know. When we get to the point where we're desperate, we're willing to give away more and more important things. If I was going to preach on this, I would simply say that a life spent away from the bread of life that is Jesus, a life spent far away from the water of life that is Jesus, will leave us hungry, thirsty, tired, broken, famished, starving. And it may even get to the point where we are willing to sell off our birthright. We're willing to give up the plan that God has for us for something that is worth eternally less. I don't know. I saw this video the other day of basically it was a time lapse of these people who had been in addiction for a long time, and it was their mug shots from over the years and just how their face changed and what they went through for all those years, and how they couldn't get into recovery. And recovery takes the drug activity takes a grip on you for sure, but for those people, it gets to the point where you're willing to, do anything and give up anything just for the next hit, just for the next, just for a little bit more. And when we spend time away from the Father, spend time away from Jesus, it can get to the point where we're so desperate for anything at all that might feed us that we're willing to give up and forego the plan that God has for us. And so the moral of the story being, stay in God's house, stay in the house. I don't mean literally, but I mean, stay consistent in God's house. Follow the path that God has for you. If Esau had not been out as long as he should have, if he had not been out for so long, he wouldn't have been as hungry, wouldn't have lost the birthright in this case. It wasn't nice for Jacob to hold him up like that, but fact of the matter, that's what happened. Esau scorned his birthright. So, the names Jacob means he grasps the heel or supplanter, and Esau means hairy or rough. We already talked about that, but that doesn't give us really any clue about their lives later on, but except maybe supplanter. So, moral of the story, stay in God's house. Stay in God's house. A lot happened in these two stories, and so I want to say thank you for joining us for the Amplified podcast today. Tune back in for next week for Genesis 26 and 27 as we follow Jacob's story. It's going to heat up even more so between Jacob and Esau. And I recommend, if you're looking for a new Bible that's a little more aesthetically pleasing, to get these Alabaster Bibles that I have here. This one is, I think it's Revelation, but it's there's no commentary in it. It's literally just the word, but it's kind of like laid out like a magazine with these beautiful pictures and everything. They are not a sponsor. Maybe they will be someday. It'd be really cool, but I highly recommend these Alabaster Bibles. And so thank you for joining us today. As always, you can see more information, or if there's ever going to be a week where we miss an episode or something like that, or we change something, you can find news about it on our Instagram, J.A. Carnett, Carnett. Of course, it's all in the description below. But we're glad to have you with us today. We'll see you later.